All right. Good evening, everybody. All right, we've got enough to get going. I will call the Water and Sewer Board meeting to order. And Brenda, if you'll take roll.
Sure. Board Member Bereskie.
Present.
Board Member Mercier is absent. Board Member Ridley.
Present.
Board Member Roth is absent. Board Member Freeman, absent. Council Member Anderson.
Present.
Council Member Woodward.
Present.
Mayor Sierra.
Present.
Vice Chair Habernick.
Present.
Chair Moore.
Present. All right, thank you. Next item business is just welcoming Ty to another term. So Ty, thanks for being willing to continue to serve, and happy to have you for another round. On approval of minutes, can I get a motion to approve the Water and Sewer Board minutes from January 10th?
I'll move the minutes from January 10th.
Second.
Right, any discussion, corrections? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Brenda, do we have anyone wishing to speak for the public forum?
We do not at this time, no.
Thank you. All right, new business. I'll turn it over to Peter for award of contract for services with C&amp Water Solutions for the 2023 valve replacement project. Or Sarah.
Thank you. Sarah's going to run the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. We have a couple of contract approvals tonight for the action items. The first of which is our valve replacement program for 2023. And we just have a short presentation for you to go through what our plans are. So we have a number of valves throughout the entire system, many of which have not been exercised in many, many years, and have subsequently either broken or are non-functioning. And so through the master planning process, we developed a skeleton of a valve exercise and maintenance program. This is the maintenance aspect of that program, which is to essentially replace 57 inoperable valves that we have throughout the system. You can see where they are. They're spread throughout the system. In addition to this contract, well, this 57 valves is actually essentially 2 years worth of valve maintenance or valve replacement that would occur. That's why we're requesting in excess of $1 million. Generally, on an annual basis, we'd be looking to do around $500,000. But last year we didn't get this executed. We were going through the contracting process, but we didn't get it executed by the time the end of the year occurred. So we're just rolling over and doing 2 years worth in this year. So we have many more valves than the 57 that we have listed that need to be replaced. How we're going to figure that out is we have a parallel contract that's going through. It's actually under $100,000, so it's not would not go to council. That's for a valve exercising company. So their job is to go through and exercise every valve over the next 3 years, and throughout the course of that process, we will get a complete inventory of broken valves and non-operating valves and locations where valves may be necessary that they are not, which will then help to further guide our replacement program over the next several years. So we went out for an RFP on this, and you can see that there were 3 responses. We're recommending moving forward with C&amp Water Solutions, and you can see the pricing that's listed below. If you look, you can see Black Eagle Energy Services is actually a little bit less expensive than C&amp Water Solutions. However, we have a contract with them for the water line replacement that we issued last year, and we're still awaiting that project moving forward because there's been delays in materials, and we are several months behind in terms of executing that project. And so we didn't want to move forward with another large contract with them without seeing how they're actually going to execute on the current contract that they have, but haven't necessarily executed on yet. So we went with C&L Water Solutions, which is the second lowest. They're also one of our on-calls. So we have, if you recall, we have 3 on-call contractors. C&L is one of them. And so their pricing, when you look at the total base price plus the rates, was competitive from a value perspective, and based on their responsiveness on their on-call contract, the fact that we have actually seen them respond and provide work for us, we are recommending moving forward with C&L Water Solutions. I will entertain any questions.
Peter, this is John. Just in terms of the valves, I assume like each homeowner connection to the system, those are not valves that we're talking about, because those are really the homeowner's issue. So these are valves that are within the city's part of the system, so to speak. Is that correct?
That's correct. These are distribution system valves. And so if you think about when there's a water line leak, the teams have to go and find the valves to shut water off to that leak. The challenge that they're having is they're heading back 2 and 3 valves, because they'll turn a valve and it won't shut off the leak because the valve is broken. And so this is just an issue with a system that the valves have not been exercised in many years. They end up freezing up, and when you try to turn them, they break the nut off, and there's just all kinds of challenges with them.
Very good. Thank you. Mayor Sierra?
Thank you, Chair Moore. So Director, so is the issue with Black Eagle just the fact that we're still waiting on materials, or do we have past history with them where have we been able to evaluate their past performance in any type of way? Because there is a sizable difference in terms of their bid versus the C&L bid.
So we're still waiting for them to perform on the first contract that we've issued to them. We issued that contract to them in the middle of last year, and we're still waiting for them to provide any performance on that contract. So it became because we need this to be a responsive, we need there to be some amount of responsiveness to this project. We didn't want to necessarily issue another contract without seeing how they do on their current project or their current contract. If in fact, once they get going on the waterline project, waterline replacement project, they are performing well, that contract has the opportunity for 5 more additional renewals or 4 more additional renewals in it. And so if they do start to perform well, we'll keep working with them on the waterline project. As it relates to the valve project, if C&L is performing adequately and we're getting what we need done, we have the same opportunity for renewals if it makes sense.
Okay.
So Director, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so Director, it does sound like we're unhappy with the fact that they haven't. From what I'm sensing, we're unhappy with the fact that they have not started their project yet, from the one issued half a year ago.
Yeah, I would say that we're not. I think there's probably some reasons why it hasn't started that are probably supply chain issues.
Right.
Also, it's been quite a while to even get this contract going. So I think there's a little bit of frustration on our end that we haven't even started yet.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Director.
Not seeing further questions. Can I get a motion to recommend City Council approve by motion a contract for services with C&L Water for the 2023 valve replacement program in the amount of $1.159 million, including approval to execute any change orders to expend a 20% staff managed contingency of $231,800 for a total project authorization of $1,390,800.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. On to item 6B.
Yeah, this is for our utility locating and marking services. Last year, we actually went out for an RFP to contract out these services. This is the way many utilities handle locating services for utilities. And what we are requesting is that within that contract, we selected USIC as the contractor, and within that contract was the ability to do a number of annual renewals. Would be the first year of an annual renewal. We are satisfied with their performance. They have really taken this workload off of what was a very specific and defined in-house staffing requirement, and have just handled it seamlessly in a way that we think is actually providing more efficiency to our distribution and collections team, so that they can focus on other areas of the system. You can see the contract renewal amounts, and so there's a modest increase likely associated with the increase in prices of everything. And so that is what we are requesting for a contract renewal number 1 with USIC.
All right, Ty, do you have a question? All right, so Ty, I'm unable to hear you. Let's give it another try. Tell you what, Jim, why don't you go ahead and then we'll give Ty another shot.
Okay. I'm just curious, does this also include when a resident calls? I don't remember what the number is for a location of, for example, a sewer line or a water line, and somebody comes out and marks it. Would that be the same people that do this?
Yes, that's exactly what this is. This is to mark the water, sewer, and storm lines for the city.
Okay, and it would take care of the residents.
Yep, that's right. So when you call in because you're going to do some digging on your property or something like that, this is the company that'll come out and mark where your lines are.
Okay, thank you.
Ty, are you back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Perfect, thank you. Go ahead.
I was going to ask if we have an average time to response on this company that we're considering renewing.
I don't know if I don't have that off the top of my head, but I can find out for you and get back to the board with that. Unless Sarah, do we know that at all?
I do not know that answer either, but we'll find out.
I guess, we haven't heard any feedback that they are not responding in an adequate time frame. Are you hearing something differently that might indicate that we need to look into that?
I'm not. I was just curious if we had that as a metric for evaluating their performance. But if we don't have complaints, I guess that serves as a proxy.
Yeah, I haven't directly heard, but we'll find out. We'll dig in and get some specifics on that for you.
Could be a good, useful, ongoing metric. Let me check. I don't see any additional hands raised. All right, can I get, let me do it this way. Can I get a motion to approve item 6B as written?
I move to approve 6B.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, very good. Next up is under staff's choice of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund annual budget approval process.
Hi, thanks. No, I'm here to address that. So what we're seeking, to give you some background, in connection with an outside consultant, the city attorney's office is conducting a charter review and recommending proposed changes to council so that these proposed changes could then be passed on to the electorate for their consideration in November. So we are seeking guidance on whether or not the Water and Sewer Board wants to include section 62 of charter, which pertains to the planning power of the Water and Sewer Board. We suggest including this section for revision because it's not clear whether the stormwater utility and enterprise fund fall within the Water and Sewer Board's planning and powers. Specifically, section 62 requires that the Water and Sewer Board shall plan for the continued adequacy of the domestic water supply and system and sanitary sewer systems. And to date, staff has interpreted this to include the stormwater system, but that charter section is not specifically clear. So we're just seeking your guidance on whether or not you'd like to have this charter section be included in that revision process to either explicitly include or exclude the stormwater system itself. So if there's any questions or any thoughts about that, happy to address and answer them.
Peter, do you want to add anything before we go to the board?
Yeah, if you don't mind, and thank you, Chair. In working with Vicki in the city attorney's office, this has actually been something that has been somewhat on our radar and utilities for the last couple of years, because what happens, the way it works right now is what happens is for the last couple of years, the public works director has brought the budget for the stormwater system to this board to review, and then for recommendation to council, and then council approves it as part of the budget. But then all the associated projects and everything within that budget don't end up going through this board for review. And so it seemed very it was a very small subset of what the board was actually providing approval on, which was just the budget, without necessarily understanding all the aspects of the projects. And so many years ago, when utilities had all three enterprise funds, which was water, sewer, and storm, I think that that seemed to be the way it operated, and operated well. Now that all three of the utilities are actually performing a significant amount of work, I would say more so than maybe was historically done. And with that restructuring of moving the stormwater enterprise functionally under the public works department, it seems like there's a disconnect between what this board focuses on, which is predominantly water and sewer, as per the charter, or I mean, as per the code, versus what the stormwater enterprise fund potentially does as a subset of public works. And so we were trying to streamline this and maybe put it under where it makes more sense, because it's structurally under public works as it relates to a governing board or governing body.
Great,
Did I
thank
get
you
that all
all.
right, Vicki?
Yes.
All right. Good.
So this, I'll just, as chair, I'll offer just a little bit of my perspective on this to hopefully facilitate discussion. Again, I think the fact that this sat under the board previously, again, kind of made sense when that's the way it was aligned from a city staff structure, but it isn't really directly in our purview. And so now we're more detached from it. I think kind of my perspective is really directed to the council members on this board about whether or not, if this board doesn't have anything to do with the stormwater, the stormwater side of it, do you have the citizen representation that you want or need? And as long as I would say, as long as council's comfortable, then, personally, I think the suggestion that maybe it's not, we're just not completely aligned on this issue in terms of functionality or whatever may make sense. So that's just kind of my thought. So with that, I'll open up, and then Marjan and then Ty.
Hi, Peter. I just was wondering, does there any of the, for that portion of the utilities that you're mentioning, does the funding comes from the consideration of the board, correct? The funding comes from the board have to decide on that. So my point of view is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my point of view is that if the funding is coming from the board's decision and portion of it goes to that, don't you think that the board needs to be notified of all the changes and they need to be involved with that?
Well, I think it's similar to, so all three of them are enterprise funds. So we have water as an enterprise fund, sewer as an enterprise fund, and stormwater as an enterprise fund. And so the expenses and the revenues carry together. And so this board recommends to council changes in rates and fees and revenue changes along with expense changes. And so it's not that the board actually sets any of those rates and fees. The council ultimately sets rates and fees for all three of the stormwater enterprise funds. It just, it comes down to a functionality of which board is more in touch with the day-to-day of that enterprise fund, and to make appropriate recommendations to the council to ultimately make those decisions.
And so then it raised the question in my mind, so what's the harm on the board being involved with that knowledge?
Well, it's not a matter of being involved, it's just which area of the city it makes sense. It's not that there's necessarily a harm. It just, if this board is going to consider stormwater, it seems that the board should either consider all of stormwater or none of stormwater, not just get to the budget season where there's a half an hour presentation of here's the stormwater budget, and then for the rest of the year there's all the other stormwater related activities function through public works. And so what's brought this up is to take that last piece, which is that budgeting component, the presentations you see through the summer, instead of presenting it to this board, present it to the Transportation Advisory Committee as a subset of public works. And so then there's still a citizen advisory committee associated with making recommendations to council. Council ultimately approves anything with all three of these enterprise funds, no matter what. It's just a matter of which recommending board or committee is most associated with the activities of the enterprise fund.
The reason I was saying that, and this might be from my lack of knowledge about this, but if from my understanding is that the stormwater affects how the water is processed, correct? It has, especially in wintertime, and has effects on that, right? And so then how does, if people are not informed about how it's affect, and half of the information goes to this council and the other half goes to that, how does one I would imagine there was a reason that they put that in there, correct? And so then by removing that, what's the benefit of that? I fail to see the benefit. If you could just explain to me, I appreciate that.
So it's not that, there's a couple questions in there. It's not that stormwater was actively put into the regulations way back when. Stormwater wasn't even a consideration back then. It was just a function of the street. And so it's only in recent years that a stormwater enterprise has even developed to where it's a separate funding mechanism. So this is a new entity that wasn't necessarily considered at the time that this part of the code was written. Which is why if you actually look at the code, and Vicky, correct me if I'm wrong on this, this board still has oversight authority if there is some kind of a pollution impact to the source water supply. And so that's a specific act that this board would still maintain connectivity to. It's just this board wouldn't be working, wouldn't be approving curb and gutter replacements that are a stormwater function that, that curb and gutter replacements or detention ponds, things that aren't necessarily water quality related, that are actually stormwater flooding related. So there's a whole flooding component to stormwater that isn't necessarily covered by this board's code.
And I understand. Thank you for that example. It helped me. Thank you.
You're on mute, Chair.
I'm sorry. Ty, go ahead, please. You're also on mute. Okay, there we go.
I agree with I think Marjan's opinion on this. I personally would like to see a little more input from Public Works and keep stormwater under this umbrella. I think all municipalities kind of struggle with where stormwater lives. Does it live on the water side or the Public Works side of things? My concern is that when we have folks interested in the water cycle, I think they would gravitate to a board like this versus transportation, which seems a bit out of place. So that's just my opinion on this situation.
Joe, and then Jim.
I think it makes sense to put stormwater with the Transportation Advisory Committee. There really is in my opinion, a big difference between, both the water and sewer systems both have large facilities associated with them and a significant customer facing component. And I think those fit well here. And I think it would make sense to keep the public works stuff on the same commission. To have one staff department that is sort of in charge of communicating with each of those different commissions makes the most sense to me in terms of just staff efficiency and board efficiency.
Jim, go ahead.
I'm in agreement with Council Member Anderson on this. In all my years on council, it's always been Public Works that's dealt with stormwater. I think going back to the very beginning, when stormwater system was really put in Englewood back with Kells Wagner, the major part of it, but it was always Public Works. So I don't know, as long as it doesn't cross over into the water or sewer, which the only time it could possibly do that, I think, is during flooding where it would get into the water supply. I'm in agreement that the recommendation should be to the Transportation Board and for City Council to take it out of water sewer. Thank you.
Marjan, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that, I just came from a trip from California and the Paradise, and I just liked where all the fires and the situation was. And so, and I just I continue, I'm sorry, Peter, if this goes through my mind. But what I think is that when you get a situation like this, as we're saying, some of this stuff is coming to me, let's say if, God forbid, we get some sort of a situation that there are disasters like that's coming, like storms and situations like that. So that certainly puts a strain to not so much transportation, probably gets tertiary effect on there where the quality of water is the primary effect. And so I just felt to see how come the water board should not have acknowledgements about these situations. It's just I feel I just don't see the benefit. Well, you're saying there's not much of a benefit, but then I see the harm more than the benefit. So this might be from my lack of experience in this, and I just I failed to see that because I saw that in California, that how much problems they had. So I just don't know how, if God forbid something in Colorado happens or in Englewood, then how does that help us? I just failed to see that. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I think I think maybe some clarity, maybe to help clarify this, and I hope I'll help clarify a little bit, is it's not that we're saying that the board wouldn't be involved if there's some kind of a pollution event that is impacting the water supply. If you think about what pollution events are actually going to impact the water supply for the Allen plant, it's something that's happening in Chatfield. It's something that happens in the open sections of City Ditch in Littleton, or it's something in the South Platte River upstream of the Union Ave pump station. And so those are all things that are outside the framework of the city's stormwater enterprise, with the exception if there's a water quality component required of a new development or something like that. And so that example that you're using, if there's some kind of an impact of the water supply, actually is the impacting is occurring outside the area of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund within the city of Englewood. The city of Englewood Stormwater Enterprise Fund predominantly handles flooding issues. That's the S2, S3 basin work that's been done over the last several years. It's the new detention pond that's going in down off of I can't think of Windermere. It's the replacement of storm sewer trunk systems and things like that in city streets. And so that's different than what this board does maintain influence over, which is impacts to the source water for the Allen plant. And so that doesn't go away. This is just more of like all that other stormwater system building and development that is in much more alignment with transportation than it is with with water and sewer.
Thank you.
Ty, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I have a question for Councilmember Anderson and Mayor Sierra, because I'm not familiar with the transportation board. I know the focus on that could be all over the place, from bikes, multimodal transportation. Do you feel like the stormwater will get the respect it deserves with that group? Because the whole goal of this is to get motivated citizens engaged to kind of vet what the city's doing. Water and sewer, the folks here have a vested interest in water and sewer, and transportation seems like it's a bit disconnected. So maybe some insight into how those groups function and how engaged they are in this area would help me.
Mayor Sierra might be better to speak to this, since he's had more involvement on ETAC. I would just say that I kind of see the stormwater system kind of like streets. It doesn't, we don't have a portion of our, or a commission that oversees our street maintenance. I don't believe. I think that's something that just Public Works does and brings to council, because it's just maintaining an existing, hard system. It's hardscape, it's concrete works and that kind of thing. So I don't see, even if this goes under ETAC, that there would be a significant amount for them to do anyway. So I'm not sure it makes a huge difference.
Hey, Member Anderson, I could jump in. I am the liaison to the ETAC board, Transportation Advisory Committee. So I can't speak. Stormwater hasn't come up too frequently in our conversations, but they have reviewed budgets in previous years. I know that one of the members is also within the construction business and has a lot of familiarity with certain aspects that I believe this may fall under his purview as well. But I can't speak for all members overall. But just the fact that Public Works is heavily involved with DTAC, they've spoken about Union Station repair work and that kind of stuff. But so I just couldn't say specifically if they have interest in stormwater, but obviously Public Works does fall under that purview within ETAC itself.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good information. I understand the logistics of Public Works and water and sewer can be a bit challenging. That helps me. I still feel the same way that this group it fits better in my opinion. But yeah, I'm curious what the other board members think.
Let me ask staff a couple clarifying questions to try to help frame this. So either Peter or Victoria. I mean, ultimately, to be clear, right, the alignment of this is council's decision. This is whether or not the board wishes to make a recommendation or express an opinion. But that's the first question. Is ultimately it's really for council to decide whether it wants to shift the alignment.
In part, yes, up to council and then the actual electorate of the city of Englewood. Because this would have to go to a vote of the citizens.
Okay.
It's a charter amendment.
And I'm sorry, Claire, I know you tried to say that early on. Clarify that for me again. If what is the change in the charter that would result if council's desire was to realign?
The change in the charter would be to make more clear in section 62 regarding planning of the board's powers that we would keep the language that the board shall plan for the continued adequacy of the domestic water supply and system and sanitary sewer systems, but we would suggest adding, but not the stormwater system.
So why is that not an interpretation issue to begin with?
Well, it is an interpretation issue, and to date, the interpretation has been to include that within the board's powers, but it's not specifically enumerated in the charter. And this is something that we could either specifically exclude or specifically include, just to make that clear going forward.
I mean, it seems to me if you chose not to address it, council could still realign in absence of clarity in the charter, couldn't council still redirect it in one spot versus another, or is that not the case?
That is something that we could do, but we just want to make sure that whatever it is we are doing, it's clear and doesn't subject us to any kind of allegations that are not in alignment with the charter requirements.
Okay. It puts a little more to it than I was expecting. One second, Don, and then I'll go to you. Short of that charter issue, I guess the other question that I want to confirm is this responsibility can either sit with the Water and Sewer Board, it could move to the Transportation Advisory Board, or it could also just be something that goes directly to council without without a citizen board input process. That would be a third choice on this as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's mostly correct. Yes.
Okay, I'll go with mostly. That's better than I do most of the time anyway. I'll pause there. Don, go ahead.
It seems like we went through some of this a few years ago. And I believe there's some of this is actually in the city code, not just the charter.
That is correct. There is a section which is why I said mostly correct. There's a section of code that addresses the Stormwater Utility Enterprise Fund. And that would need to be, we can make that also in alignment with whatever the direction and guidance that we're receiving from the board and also from council.
Okay. Any further questions before I suggest something? I'm not seeing any.
Can I jump in just real quick, John? Just to
Sure.
bring a little clarity. The reason we're talking about this is because city council is undergoing a charter amendment process where we're working our way through the entirety of charter. So it's not that we suddenly just decided where should stormwater be. It just came up in the course of working through our charter amendment process that then has to go through the voters. So I think that's mostly what's driving this, not a desire for council to change anything, but just to figure out where should things fit in the future.
Great, thank you. All right, well, I'm going to, I don't have a clear answer here, but I'm going to suggest something. The board certainly can just leave this subject where we are at this point in the conversation. Another option is a board member could choose to make a motion. That motion might look like what could be a motion to council that the board supports leaving, and I'm not making this motion, I'm just trying to frame it. The motion might be that this board recommends to city council that stormwater responsibilities remain with the water and sewer board. If someone wanted to drive this to a vote, we could make a motion like that, or any other motion that's at your pleasure. I'll leave it at that and see if anyone wants to take it from here. Okay. Okay, Marjan.
Well, I thought if it has more clarity, that sounds really good to me. If there is more clarity about, because what I hear from the sharing that is happening is that they're not talking about it a whole lot in the other council. So it's not addressed there. So then if we're not addressing it here, then where are they addressing it? So that's where it comes to my mind. So if we have the opportunity to be able to have the voice of the people involved with that, I think that's always a great option. So with that closed, please proceed.
So that just clarifying a little bit, that certainly could be a motion that we recommend to city council, that they clarify where this responsibility should lie and that there should be citizen involvement. And you could stop short of recommending whether it's with this board or not, if that's something you wish to do. I'll leave that to you. Ty, go ahead.
I just have a quick question for the other board members. I'm personally interested in the stormwater side of things, but I'm one person. I'm not sure how the rest of the board feels about it before we even consider putting a vote one way or another. I think I'm open to consensus on this board. If folks don't like that, don't like being in the loop on stormwater, and don't think this is the home for it, that's fine by me. But I'm just curious. I know we haven't heard from too many folks yet.
And Ty, that's a great question, and I'll kick it off. Personally, I kind of struggle with it. I think that I see both sides of this. It does not well align. Let me rephrase that. I think this board has the right, overall experience and structure in dealing with issues that would make it appropriate for this board, but it is not something that we have properly, I would say, have maybe given the proper attention to. I would say if the board wishes to continue in this role, I'm going to choose the wrong words and say we take it more seriously. I recognize as chair, that's even a challenge. I meet with utilities leadership in planning these meetings, and I don't currently have that connection with Public Works. If we're going to really embrace this as something this board takes seriously, I think that we need to make some, we'll need to make some changes to give it its proper attention. But I think the same holds true for the Transportation Advisory Board. If they're going to take it on, they need to embrace it as well. And that's what I don't have a feel for the other side of the fence on this one. So I'll share. I have personal feelings that go both ways on this. And I don't know how I would vote if anyone makes the motion, but go ahead. Any other comments from other board members? Travis.
Yeah, is there an example we can use? Like, I know over here off of Quincy or Oxford and Santa Fe, twice we went through all the craziness with the breakage of the storm drain, et cetera. How were we, and if I recall right, we were involved with okaying money. We had to come up with the money for the second repair on that. What was our involvement versus the Public Works involvement with deciding on the money? Because if we're deciding on the money, maybe we should keep it here. But I'm not sure. I mean, how much, I wanted an example of what we're involved with it and what we're not involved with.
I think at the time the flooding was occurring, or the collapse system on Oxford with the sinkhole, that was in 2018. And so in 2018, the stormwater utility was actually under utilities. And so just like any of the water sewer work that was occurring, which actually at that point in time was fairly minimal, it was run up through this board. In 2019, there was a restructuring within the city. And this is where I moved from being the South Platte Renew director to being a director of the utilities department and the South Platte Renew, splitting my time 50-50 between the two organizations. With that restructuring, the decision at that point in time was to move stormwater with public works out, because at that point in time, before that restructuring, utilities was under public works for a period of time. And that was actually done under city manager Keck. Right before he left, he moved utilities under public works, and then that went on hold. But public works was administering utilities until the time that I came in as the director of both. And at that point in time, the stormwater utility was determined to move with the previous public works director, DeAndre, to public works, and then all of the water and sewer related utility was under me, while also doing the South Platte Renew job. So I think at the time that was occurring, you're right, the budgetary things were coming up through this board. But as soon as that restructuring occurred in early 2020, that functionality moved into public works. And at that point in time, apart from the annual budgeting process, none of the other activities were actually running back up through this board at that point in time, because the internal structuring moved it under public works. There are many organizations that have all three utilities in one department, so that you'd have water, sewer, and storm. And I think if that's how this was structured here, it'd make perfect sense to run all the stormwater budgets and projects and things like that just as a normal course of business here. But that's not how it's administratively structured within the city. And so now it becomes a matter of, streamlining citizen input to ensure that council gets the recommendations that they need to ultimately make all the decisions on all the enterprise funds in the end anyways. So I think that's how we got here.
I'm gonna suggest something to try to bring some closure. I will make a motion. I'll make a motion that the Water and Sewer Board recommend to City Council that I'm sorry, we'll clarify this if we need to. The motion is that the Water and Sewer Board lets City Council know that we are supportive of any efforts to clarify which citizen board can provides input and oversight for stormwater issues, and further that the Water and Sewer Board is certainly willing to take on or continue that responsibility if council believes we are the best home for it. So that's my suggestion, unless someone tells me that motion is not a valid motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
There we go. Further discussion before we vote. I'm sorry, Drevis, I'm first going to assume your hand is still raised, or do you have a question or comment?
That off there.
Okay.
Sorry about
No problem. Ty, I think you are jumping in.
Yeah, so to clarify, we're putting this fully in the hands of council to just make the choice. Is that correct, John?
Yes, we are recommending that we're supportive of any effort to clarify the responsibility and we are willing to take it on. We're coming short of recommending that we're taking it on. I'm saying the board is willing to take on that or continue that duty if that's where they wish for this responsibility to lie. Does that make sense? Okay, any further comment or question? All right, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And opposed? Wow, that was well crafted then. The motion carries, and council, I hope you value our input on it and certainly send us back for more discussion if so desired. In the anxiousness to attack this difficult subject, I skipped over the old business, the PFAS customer notification update. Do we still wish to squeeze that in?
I can make it quick.
Go ahead.
So, okay, great. So back in December, we let this board know that we would have to issue customer notifications regarding PFAS in Englewood's water. We worked very closely with the Colorado Department of Health and Environment to craft a customer letter that some of you may have received already in your bill. So those customer notifications went out starting February 1st. And they were included in everybody's bill. We also issued a press release on February 3rd to just let the media list that we maintain know that we were sending out that notification. And then we posted on our website information that the state also required us about PFAS. We have received 0 customer calls regarding this. I checked with the billing staff today. And then there are a couple good stories that did come out and using quite a bit of the information that we put out in our press release, and that is also included on our website. So those stories were in the Littleton Independent as well as the Englewood Herald. So that's kind of our update on our customer notification. We will update our website quarterly, and depending on our testing and things of PFAS in the future, make any additional notification on the website.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions? Joe?
Not a question, but I would just say it to Sarah and the whole team. It was a great letter. I got it in my bill just yesterday or the day before, and I thought it was really clear. Didn't have any language that was going to worry people, understanding that it's something that's a widespread problem, not just an Englewood problem. So well done on it.
Thank you. Yeah. The state was also very appreciative of our clarity in our message.
Very good. Ty, go ahead.
Sarah, has there been a lot of calls from citizens concerned or needing clarification, or has that been pretty good with just the letter?
It's been good with the letter. We have an internal, frequently asked questions list, and so our staff is well prepared to answer, but they have not had to take any calls as of today.
Great. I'll note on the agenda included the look ahead schedule, just so you guys, if you see or notice, March and April have pretty full agendas. So certainly we may just allow for the possibility that we have to run long on those 2 meetings. It's not formally on the agenda, but certainly, is there any other issues that a board member would like to raise? Seeing none. All right, I think we are set for the evening. Thank you all for your participation and time, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.